Nigerians continue to voice their concerns about the persistent challenges, hunger, inflation, and other general increase in price of goods and services. Now, these issues not only affect livelihoods of individuals and families, but also security and economic stability of Nigerians. Today, that is what we would be discussing. How can we curb this inflation, and how can we enhance agricultural practices that will get us off this looming statistics of food insecurity? That is what we'll be discussing on today's edition of the program. In the studio to discuss this is our very own Daniel Black, head Yali Network. That's the Young African Leaders Initiative Network Nigeria. He also doubles as the GSAI CEO. That's the Growth for Sustainable Initiatives, Growth for Sustainable Agriculture Initiatives head, as we'll be talking about agriculture. It's exciting to be here. I hope you're happy that we would, for one, see how you too can contribute to ensuring the food insecurity in Nigeria is reduced. What can you do? How can all stakeholders come on board? Is it actually such a dark situation? That's what we'll be getting to. Welcome to Joy Asanye Live. I am Joy Asanye. Well, Daniel Black, thank you so much for coming.
As is always, thank you so much for having me, Joy.
Yes.
It's usually a pleasure.
It's always the honor is indeed mine. We'll go for a short break. When we return, it will be time to get to the crux of the matter. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back from that short break. Now, the situation Nigeria is facing has affected individuals and families, but also has posed a serious threat to food insecurity and economic stability in the country. Well, Daniel Black, again, I welcome you to the show, and I would like you to just get straight to the crux of the matter. I know we had this conversation about a year ago when it wasn't this bad, and I remember that period the government was all about how going after people hoarding. They called it at the time hoarding food to sabotage the economy. I know you took a stand that period to say this isn't hoarding. This has been our tradition from time immemorial, where you keep certain meals and sell it when it's no longer harvest time for those commodities. But here we are. When you look back at the warnings you had given government at the time and where we are at the moment, how do you feel?
Yeah, Joy, it's been a very sad tale of different warnings, different forecasting, in fact, I dare say prophecies coming to pass. And because not just me, every sane thinking Nigerian, everybody that is abreast with things happening at the global sphere, everybody that is abreast with economic policies, he actually has an understanding or has an inkling of how the future will look like. And you said when things were not this bad. You see, I recently watched a skit, and I want to say things have always been this bad. Is just increasing in scale. So I recently watched a skit where some Nigerian, some guy in his skit, he slept and woke up and did not know that he woke up in 2010, right? And when he woke up in 2010, he found himself in a restaurant, he ate, he collected food and ate, and then he now asked the restaurant lady, how much is this food? And the lady said, it's 800. And he was shocked that it is 800. Meanwhile, everybody around him was saying, Madam, why is your food this expensive? 800 is too expensive. Madam, your own too expensive. Honestly,
I do understand. Right? Going back to 2010,
800 went as far as going into a filling station to buy the fuel.
And 180 at the time.
No, it was 65.
Yes.
So he asked them, how much will they sell on our own fuel? Giving a perception that he's used to everybody having different prices, right?
Especially
the fuel pump attendant was like, okay, they blind, he's 65 now, you don't see him for everywhere. He was shocked. And then somebody was already complaining, why is fuel 65 now? Why can't government bring it down to 50 naira? So that was to show that even as at 2010, Nigerians were complaining.
Right.
And over 14 years down, this is 2024, 14 years down the line, Nigerians are still complaining.
Black, I won't want to wake up from that dream. 2010 and the prices of things.
Unfortunately, The buying power of the people.
No, I mean knowing what I know now.
Knowing what you know now.
Knowing what I know now, of course.
Then you would have probably, I would call that death, because you would have been going back and then your future potentials would not be met, right?
Okay, that leaves several other questions. I mean, I don't want to pursue that, but this is a trajectory that is really unfortunate, especially after we had that statistics that was released, I think last year, of the multi-dimensional poor people in Nigeria. We're talking about 166 at the time, multi-dimensionally poor. And if you look at the poverty index, is nothing to be proud of as a country with arable land. I don't want to go into oil right now. Let's talk about agriculture. Does it sadden you that you don't see much being done? What are the initiatives you would like state government? I hate to concentrate so much on the federal, but state government.
You see, Joy, it's a multi-level, it's a multi-sectorial activity.
I agree
the
with
federal government has its unique role that no other agency, no other level can play. The state has its own unique role, the local government, and then comes the private sector, and of course the individuals. So yeah, everybody has its role to play, and it's unfortunate that we are just running around the corners, turning on a merry-go-round, and then playing the blame game. The state governors are blaming the federal government, individuals are blaming the entire government is blaming the people, and in fact government is blaming corruption. I really wish we could see corruption and hold him down and tell him to stop all the things he's doing in Nigeria.
I've had this conversation before, and
yes.
You know, when we say corruption, who indeed isn't corrupt?
No, who is corruption? Because I think at this point we have discussed corruption and we have made corruption a third party.
Like it doesn't concern us at all.
No, it is an external party that is coming to rob us of our inheritance. But unfortunately, corruption is not an entity, it's not a person, it's not anything. It is us, it is ourselves doing ourselves. So going back to your direct question, Joy, yeah, like I said, it's a multi-sectoral. Everybody has a role to play. The state government has roles to play, and I really do not know what it would take for the state government, the federal government, everybody to wake up to the dire consequences of what is going on. Food is increasingly expensive by the day, where the prices you're going to the market to buy today are definitely not the prices you'll buy next week. Every week prices are increasing, prices are changing, and I tell you this as a farmer, as someone that interfaces with farmers at farm gate prices, interfaces with people selling fresh food items. I understand on a daily basis the different needs for people. As prices of fuel increases, so does the prices of food items increases. As prices of school fee, as prices of feeding, as prices of basic living amenities increases, really, food items is increasing. And I am wondering, at what point will the government wake up to its responsibility of ensuring that food, because I keep saying, and I do not want to now sound like a prophet, because what I'm saying is not rocket science. The moment there is no food, nothing else can thrive in the country. The moment there is shortage of food, people will go haywire. And like you said, I mentioned these things, I want these things. I really would love to be wrong. So basically everybody has their role to play. Government has a role in policies, in implementing very specific result-oriented projects that will make sure that it brings down the prices of food. It also increases the quantity of food in the market, and it brings down the cost of production for farmers, for industrialists, and every other thing. And I must add, I must add that it is not just an agricultural sector, because if you try your best, if you do all you can to bring down the cost of food, meanwhile the cost of clothing, the cost of school fees, the cost of housing, the cost of fuel is still expensive. That on its own will not reduce the cost of feeding. It has to be an all-round solution.
Okay, while you say that, I would like to address the issue that a lot of experts have had diverse opinions about. Do we have scarcity of agricultural products, food in Nigeria, or it's a case of inflation, the purchasing power of Nigerians, that's the problem? Do we have deficit of farmers?
Joy, that's the problem we have. We have everything you've mentioned, we are facing them today, and I can give you practical
So how
examples.
can you simultaneously have the
We have
deficit
scarcity of food.
we do?
We have scarcity of farmers. We have inflation going on in the country, and every other thing you'd want to mention. Let me give you examples now. Let me give you practical examples. As at 2023, when the data came out, over 600,000 hectares of farmland that were previously used for production of food in Nigeria were flooded.
6,000.
600,000, not 6,000. 600,000 were just flooded. This is excluding the farmlands that have been abandoned by people that have been displaced, right? So you understand that the size of food production, no, please don't call it naturally.
It's natural.
Man-made wise.
Man-made wise. But it's a consequence. It's like
a consequence of man-made negligence. It's a consequence of man-made negligence and ignorance. No, not ignorance. And yes, abandonment of his responsibilities, right?
But so, it's only natural that when these indices are in place, when you talk about...
I am careful using the word natural so that we do not, because in Nigeria,
so that we don't give a lot.
The moment you say natural, is like God. It's not God.
No, at this point I'm not even talking. I'm talking about the indices, the consequences of what you just mentioned.
There are terms you use and you say naturally, and people feel that it is not in their hands anymore. Right. This is in our hands, right? So the size of food production has reduced, right? And then now this is not taking into consideration farmlands that have been converted to estates. You know, you have seen how many the expansion of real estate in Nigeria across Abuja and other states that are trying to go into urbanization. So many farms have been converted to estates. I have been a victim of, I've been a direct victim where a farm where I was farming, we had arrangement with the owner of the farm, and we leased the farm, and we had all those arrangements. And all of a sudden, out of the blues, midway into our project, he says, guys, I need to, there's a real estate on board, and they're offering
developers are offering, exactly.
And before we closed our eyes and opened, they had sprung up, they had used tractors to clear roads, passionate the land. They did not pay us off. That is a case for another day, where farmers are being treated like they are not part of the game. They are not part of the system. They are being treated as second class citizens. But we are talking about, I'm giving you empirical evidence that we have shortage of farmers who have been displaced by either flood or by either crisis in their region, or by failure, or by loss of capital and all of that, because farmers, the core farmers, are not being supported. So if you had 1 million naira, you put it into farm, you lost your crops, the potential for you to get insurance or any form of government reprieve to be able to recover your capital is very low. So for every 10 farmers that go into a farming season, only 3, only 4 come back with the zeal to go back again. So we have shortage of farmers. We have shortage of food because, as you can see, the size of land we used to cultivate and the number of farmers that used to cultivate has reduced, but the population of the people keeps increasing. It is not reducing. 10 years ago, Nigeria, as at the last, 10 years ago, Nigeria was boasting about 100 and something million people. As of today, we are talking about 270 million plus. The number of people is way above the number of food being produced, and that is why we are heavily importing. And then you now find out that most of the food we're importing are processed foods, which we have come to know are not generally healthy for the people.
Exactly.
So we have processed foods that are competing with the local food, and it's still not sufficient, right? So we talked about shortage of farmers, we talked about shortage of food, and I'm telling you that we are facing that. And then of course inflation which goes around rent, housing, feeding, clothing, and otherwise. You can find out that it is going across. So like I said, Nigeria is going through a multitude of problems, a multitude of issues, and we cannot be picking one issue to solve at a time. We cannot afford that luxury. We have to sit at the table, do a holistic overhaul, a holistic look at what our challenges are, what are the low-hanging fruits that we can grab onto, and begin to look and solve on that. So yes, it's a multi-sectoral problem.
Multi-sectoral. Now, in the face of this daunting situation, do you think we have had that kind of resilience, climate? I don't want to get into security right now, but let's talk about that intentionality in getting the farmers who are still willing, in spite of the challenges, climate resilient.
Now, listen, as a farmer on the field, as someone that interfaces with the work we do at GSAI, Growth for Sustainable Agriculture Initiative, we have interfaced with local farmers on the ground, and I dare say that there are a whole lot of independent, isolated interventions going on. But these isolated interventions have been turned into a quota or a let me eat my own share of the national cake kind of system. And so because there is no synergy, there is no continuity, there is no sustainability in the interventions that have been happening through government, through CSOs, through international agencies. So an organization comes into Nigeria and says they've done their needs-based analysis. They want to give fertilizers to farmers. They do not ask the question, which farmers are currently benefiting from government fertilizer intervention? They just go into the farm and say, okay, Joss is supplying vegetables, and then all of a sudden they are supplying fertilizer to farmers. And you find out one farmer is benefiting multiple times, while the other farmer, who probably is not connected to government, who probably is not literate, who probably has not been available to participate in those political meetings, is languishing and not able to benefit from these things. So my answer will come in twofold. There have been interventions. There are things being done to support the rural farmers, to support the farmers to become resilient and to step up to the task. But I want to say that the challenge is why these things are not bearing the fruit they should bear is because they are not happening in the coordinated format that will bring out, that will yield the result that it should yield. We are having a very haphazard, a very isolated, a competitive intervention process going on in Nigeria, which is not healthy for the agricultural and food production system in Nigeria.
If you were a local government chairman, I mean, you have just talked about how it's multi-sectoral. Everybody has a role to play to ensure the food insecurity is curbed. If you were a local government chairman, what would you start doing? Because it's really unfortunate. I stumbled on an article talking about every local government in Nigeria. I'm talking all 774 and their strengths. Everybody has something to give. Thank
you for this question. Joy, you said if I were a local government. Unfortunately, I have not been a local government chairman before.
Do you plan on being one in future?
No, I don't. I really think I've gone beyond that stage. But to say, in 2018, right, I was privileged to work with my friend who was local government chairman of my local government. I worked as his technical advisor on business development, right? And you see, one of the things he did as a local government chairman, he dedicated 10 hectares of land, and within the 3 years of his being the local government chairman, I was in charge of ensuring that farmers in our local government were equipped with modern day skills. I kid you not, today if you go to my local government, but then in local government area council in Akwa Ibom State, you will find farmers that are still benefiting from the skills they learned from the rural agricultural revolution scheme that we did. So we had farmers learning modern ways of vegetable production. With 10 hectares of land, for 3 years, we were cultivating cucumber, cultivating pepper, cultivating watermelon, cultivating all sorts of vegetables, because these people are used to a formal way. And we now showed them ways of cultivating watermelon that you can cucumbers that you can actually stake, and they are not prone to disease on the floor. And I as someone that was part of the project, not just part of as someone that spearheaded the project, I saw farmers saying on a daily basis, wow, so I'm learning something new. Exactly. We could do this. It could be done this way, right? So I believe that at the grassroots level, at the end of that project, within a 3 years time frame, we were able to support nothing less than 50 farmers that I can pinpoint to you and tell you, I can give you their numbers on very separate basis. They call me once in a while and say, thank you so much, I appreciate, where have you been, we've not seen you for a while. Yes, of course, we've moved on and we're doing things at different level right now. But I'm telling you that at that micro level of being a technical assistant to the local government chairman, we were able to support 50 farmers to increase their capacity, to increase what they can do, to improve what they can do. And today, those 50, now it's more than 50. I am mentioning 50 because these are the people that if I take you down to the local government, I could call all of them out and you see the different ways they are producing. And of course, they are contributing to the food sufficiency, in as much as 50 cannot really do so much to the population in Parenin. But I believe, this is to bring us to your question, if every local government chairman were to equip 50 farmers with modern day skills, with modern day technology, with modern day abilities of food production, it would create a dent in our food production, because like we mentioned, the problem is not just shortage of food. We talk about shortage of farmers, we talk about shortage of food, we talk about shortage of production and all of that. I think it will create a dent in the shortage of farmers and in the shortage of food problem, and that would contribute to reducing probably the inflation, because when there is plenty food in the market, more than or equal to the number of demand, we would definitely see a very competitive and healthy pricing go on in the market.
I'll get back to if you were governor, but are you one of those agricultural experts that would very quickly say, let's increase the capacity of agricultural practitioners in access to funds? Is money really the problem?
No. So I keep on saying and time again, the real farmers don't need money. The real farmers need resources, because the truth remains, the real farmers are poor. The real farmers are hungry, and any true intervention that must come to these farmers must come in threefold. And that's one of the things that I train my farmers. Every farmer that comes in contact with me, especially when we are going to the field, when you're farming, you don't just plant what you want to sell. You have to divide your farm into 3 plots. You plant what you will eat in the house, because you're a human being, you have to eat.
Exactly. You
plant what you will eat, you plant what you will sell to your immediate community to make immediate returns, and then you now plant a sustainable and a financial freedom kind of crop. That is a crop that you can export out, a crop that is of high value, right? So that is the template that any agricultural intervention should come in. You want to give farmers fertilizer, please, you can now include an economic or a household living cost, so that the farmer is not tempted to sell the fertilizer.
Exactly, which is something we've seen, especially when
government
intervenes.
It's a scheme of CBN. Farmers collected money and went to build houses, went to
marry wives, according to several
and do so many things. But you will find out that no. You see, when you want to give a dog when you want to kill a dog, you give the dog a bad name. If you check the statistics, most of the farmers went to pay debts.
Incurred from
series, from both their living conditions, from their farming investments and all of that. Very few, very few, if they bring the statistics, who actually went to marry wives or do luxury items. Well, most of them had to go and renovate their roof.
A government official actually came out to say, in a bid to criticize that initiative.
Like I said, if you want to kill a dog, you give a dog a bad name.
Would you say that initiative was one that actually could have helped farmers?
Oh yes, like I said, if it came in a tripartite fold where they empowered farmers. Now, if we are giving you 1 million naira, we tell you logically, we tell you legally, you have 200,000 to take care of your family, while you are using 800,000 to invest.
Who does that? Would you do that if you were if you were to give funds to an individual or an entrepreneur, for instance? If you were an investment,
yes.
If you're an investment person, would you have said, "Oh, I'm giving you
Joy?
$1 million, but take 200 to settle home front"?
Yes, that is the reality of things on ground.
But is it realistic for someone who will want their monies back? The Anchor Borrowers initiative wasn't a grant. I don't know why some people thought it was. It wasn't a grant. It was some sort of loan. It was very flexible, which is something we applauded, but it wasn't a grant.
Joy, listen. The reality on ground, by the time you're giving a loan, a grant, a subsidy, whatever you're giving, that is why we need to consistently do needs analysis. You do not just bring a template from the West where you give grants and then everybody's okay. Those people, they have lights, they have power, they have a mortgage where they are paying their housing over a 30-year time frame. Their car is on loan and they're able to, they don't have to go and buy a phone. Everything has been structured in a system. Those are templates that have been brought. If you come into Africa where everybody is their own government, they provide their own light, they pay for their own light, they provide their own source of living and everything, you have to come on the ground and say, what is the best structure to survive? Whether be it a loan, be it a grant, be it whatever it is, it has to be structured to incorporate the sustenance component of that rural farmer. And this is what I have been advocating for at every time and place. If you notice international grants now, one of the major components that they bring, most of them, before they give you a grant, they give you like a 6 months training, because they have also discovered that business people in Africa and in Nigeria have little business trainings, business sense. So they now say, okay, we cannot just give you money, right? Part of the benefits is to give you a business training. So you do a 6 weeks boot camp, a 6 months boot camp, both virtual and physical. In fact, some people do as much as spending money to bring all their participants to one location and do a whole lot of master classes for them and all of that. If international organizations are beginning to drift and understand that you do not just carry money and give entrepreneurs, you train an entrepreneur on bookkeeping, you train an entrepreneur on marketing, you train an entrepreneur on business plans, on everything. I am telling you, as a farmer and as someone that interfaces with farmer, that we need to redesign the way we do intervention for farmers. If you are giving 1 million naira, you have to look at the economic indices and look at what is the sustenance level of this farmer. A farmer that has been owing his children's school fee for years, a farmer that has been losing 3, 4, 5 seasons of farming, and then you give him 1 million naira and you expect him to plunge all this 1 million naira inside his farm. It is practically impossible, unfortunately, and we need to begin to look at the truth. So we begin to need to analyze, and this is not to say that you bring out questions and you bring out requirements that now remove them from the gap.
Right.
Most times, if you remove them from the gap, you end up missing the real farmers.
Right.
So we need to look at intervention schemes,
okay,
where we are able to either create a central insurance for farmers, a central, if you're a farmer, okay, come and take a voucher where your children can go to school, or come and do this, or if we have a central housing scheme for farmers. If an average Nigerian farmer does not have to think of house rent, does not have to think of house rent, does not have to think of feeding, he will plunge any funds given to him into the farm and we will get returns.
Do we have, I mean, we're going for a very short break right now. It's time to get that breaker, that breather rather. Now, before we go on that break, I would like to ask, do we have the resources to say we're not only intervening to enhance your skill as a farmer, we're also going to ensure that the home front is safe? We'll be back to discuss that. This is still Joy Asonye Live. We'll be back after that short break. Daniel Black is still right here to give us his analysis of how we can curb food insecurity in Nigeria. Welcome back from that short break. Like I said, we are discussing the agricultural sector and how we can, I mean, anyone who goes to the market these days is left frustrated. You find yourself not able to afford the things you would have afforded several months, not many months ago really, but everything seems so expensive, and it has been a trajectory that's very concerning, especially when you look at the poverty level of an average Nigerian, the purchasing power of an average Nigerian, and we would be looking at government policies, what you can do to ensure that at this point we all have to put our hands on this deck to ensure we feed ourselves. And Nigeria does enjoy the arable land. Experts say that all the time, everybody in the agricultural sector. So what then is the problem? I had posed a question to you, Daniel Black, when earlier I said that you should, you know, give us a sense of exactly what is going on. First of all, if you were governor of a state, we had trashed out the local government chairman. If you were governor, what would you ensure you do just so that your state does not suffer this food insecurity we're talking about? Yes, thank you.
So you see, everybody, like I keep saying, everybody has a role, and we can't be saying if you were governor, if you were this, if you were this. It's a matter of capacity, it's a matter of available resources. You see what is happening currently in Niger State, where they have earmarked over if I'm not mistaken, over 1,000 hectares of land dedicated to farming. You see,
not only that, he's been doing several things.
Yes.
I know he also gave out several tractors as well.
Great. So
to farmers.
So that is intentionality about food production, and in as much as that may not pay off in 1 month, in 2 months, in 3 months, but if he is consistent, if he stays the ground, if he stays the fourth, despite initial losses, initial disappointments, and his team has to acclimatize to the factors on ground. If he stays the ground, in less than 2 years, 3 years, definitely they will become a hub. I believe that is the pattern that states like Benue were kept in the 70s and in the 80s and made them being called the food basket of the nation. So I believe that if states, so your question is, if you were a governor, I would give marching orders to all my local government areas. They would have something that they are producing agriculturally. Are you by the water side? We need to do do fish, we need to do what seafood. Are you by landlocked area? Then what crop is good for you? What can we produce? And then each local government doesn't have to produce more than 1 or 2 components. Are you doing plantain? Let us make sure that we are removing 10 million bunches of plantain from your local government every month. What are you doing? Are you doing rice? And then we give ourselves targets. We also share the resources. We ensure that, okay, we are talking of local government autonomy. Fine. In your local government autonomy, what is your percentage of agricultural investment? And then we look at that. And then we also make we also give a very, very conducive working environment for the private sector, because yes, you're doing rights. We need people to offtake, we need people to mill it, we need people to, we need marketers, we need distributors, right? And you cannot do as government all of that. So you bring in your investors, you reduce tax, you probably in fact open a market and say, okay, those that are into the agricultural commodities, you give a section and you give it all free. And people come in and invest their funds. Someone comes in and tells government, okay, because of these factors you've put in, okay, there's a free warehouse for my products. I'm going to put in my 100 million naira and offtake a rice and then distribute it. Someone comes in, oh, plantain, we are going to process your plantain. So it comes from giving the matching orders and working with the local government chairman, working with the Minister of Agri, also partnering with the federal to ensure that your state becomes an economic hub of agricultural produces. It sounds so simple, and
exactly. I was going to say that. See how simple it is. You have just build out strategies.
We make it look very complex. Niger State is doing it for crying out loud. Other states are doing it at a micro level. It is that simple. Go into the field, put on your boots, go into the field. Okay, what do we have? We have water. You should be doing 10 million fishes in Nigeria. What do you have? You have land. You should be doing rice. You have wetland. You should be doing rice. You have solid land. What do you have? And then we begin to work on that. It is that simple.
In spite of the statistics you also mentioned, I mean, you just talked about the insecurity issues, the climate issues as well that's affecting the agricultural sector. So I mean, you just made it very simple. But I can't forget what you said earlier, where farmers are indeed suffering. You mentioned the climate issues. For instance, there's drought here, there's flooding here, and Nigerians are not knowing what to do. Some farmers are unsure what to do with some interventions that government brings. Government brings in fertilizers, for instance. Those fertilizers have come long after the planting season, and when you can use fertilizers on your crops and all of that. There are several challenges to actually face. But what would you do differently?
Oh yes, so basically if I go into government, you see, there is the bureaucratic process that has become characteristic of our government. And for people that have been victims, I would call that, for someone that has been a victim of this bureaucratic process, where you apply for something to use next month and it comes, if at all it comes 3 months later, we have to understand that we need to now attack this thing from a project management point of view, where we begin to put in deadlines, give people targets, and ensure that they work according to their targets. Are you a permanent secretary? What do you need to sign up? What do you need to put? Is it a budget? Do we need if we are doing a budget that needs to carry agriculture for the next year, we cannot be keeping budget to be planning. Then we do a supplementary budget and ensure that this budget goes out, funding is put out for the necessary arms and organs of the different sectors that need to work. So there's a whole lot that needs to be done, and I dare say it takes is political will, and intentionality in what needs to be done. Because people say, like I was saying at an event where I was opportune to talk to the last Minister for Agriculture, and I read out some of this, and he said it is not that simple. It is that simple. And you know, Abacha, the late Abacha once said, if any insurgency goes beyond 24 hours, then the government knows something about it. Listen, insecurity is not our problem. If government, no. If government wants to deal decisively with insecurity, I have been in places where estates have ganged up together, created vigilantes, and a series of robberies that have been happening stopped. The people stood up.
Isn't it more complex? I mean, when you look at the Sahel links to the kind of insecurity that we face, we talk about the porous borders that makes it even more difficult.
Are you aware of any word in Nigeria that elections do not take place because of insecurity?
Any word in Nigeria that elections do not take place
because of insecurity?
I am aware. I'm also aware of the many people displaced because of insecurity.
Yes, no.
Because I remember.
I'm pushing it down to election, not displaced. I am aware people have been displaced.
I remember that it trended some time ago on social media.
I am letting you know.
Where they said something about NEPA finds their way to every home in spite of the insecurity, in spite of the weather conditions and all of that.
You can say
that's in the humorous part.
That's for fun's sake. But I let you know, Joy, that
is not as bad as we say it is.
It is as bad as we say it is, but I'm saying here that we have let it be this bad.
Okay.
People have been displaced. People have actually lost their lives. People have been actually kidnapped. People have actually faced dangers and consequences of insecurity. But I am saying that we have the resources to nip it at the bud. And I just quoted Abacha that any insurgency, any violence that takes beyond 24 hours, look at NSAS that came, and the government looked like, oh, this thing looks like it was. Look at NBAD government's protest that take. Did you see the resources that was put out to bring that, to shut down NBAD governance protests? Did you see the resources and the swiftness that came to the response of NSAS protests? If government within a time frame, government was able to nip it at the bud and make sure that it did not proceed more than it went. If government wants to handle insecurity, and I say
with
this
that intensity,
with that intentionality, not just intensity, with intentionality, because if you call intensity, we can reel out budget figures of budget that has been accrued to the military to buy arms and buy this. We've seen the intensity. I have not seen the intentionality, and I dare say, we have the resources. Our farmlands can be secured. We can have central farmlands with multiple security agencies stationed around there, ensuring that food production, which is key and critical, takes place. Right? The same, I would sit here to also say that the same relevance we give to Aso Rock is the same relevance we should give to food security, food production in Nigeria. Because the chaos that will come if food is not enough, if we have 1 million people and we have just
600,000 food. I mean, I get that, but what would you rather have? I've also had conversations with individuals like yourself who are in the agro sector, and I ask, would you want all farmers have security? Do we have enough? We've also complained about the UN standard for security coverage, where it is said a certain number of individuals should have at least two security. And in Nigeria, we have over communities of 2,000 to a security person. I was talking 400,000 men on the boots on the ground. So what would your strategy be for ensuring security for farmers?
Joy, I am no peace and security professional.
Okay.
But in the little trainings and courses that I have also been through, when we talk about security, when we talk about peace, it is not just about bringing men with guns, bringing uniformed men. There are different levels of peace. There are different levels of security engagement. You have also found in the different regions of the country where we've had traditional security forces. Even in the north, we've had civilian JTF. In the west, we have a Motekun. Braced, the southern governors tried to bring up something. So you in Lagos, I would dare say we have LASMA. These people have different, yes, they are different architectural structures, right? So when you ask this question, if we have the resources, it is not just about giving police. We are not saying give police to farmers.
Okay, so not the federal architectural police system.
There is, like I keep saying, and Joy, like I keep saying, everybody has a role to play in the security of agriculture, in the food production in agriculture, in the value chain of agriculture. So when it comes to security, we have the federal having to ensure that there is the police that are available are equipped with facilities to respond to threats. The government the governors in state regions are there to ensure that the traditional rulers and the local architecture of security is also apt and going. We have the local government chairman to also ensure that criminal elements are not harbored in their local government. We have the chiefs, the traditional rulers, to also ensure that they rally up the youth to make sure that any positive investment done in their local government is secured and ensured that it is productive. So everybody has a role to play when we talk about security. It is all about the intentionality. If federal government comes and says, wow, hello guys, this is your land, we want to produce the yam that should feed Nigeria, right?
Exactly.
And then they engage the local government, they engage the governor, they engage all the stakeholders necessary. I tell you that security will go beyond sending 10 trucks of police to guard there. We don't need 10 trucks of police to guard that place. All we need is the necessary stakeholders being involved and being carried along. And then there is no, because like if you go to the south, most of the things they will tell you is that yes, they are taking our oil and they are not compensating us. There is due compensation that goes down to everybody. If you sacrifice your land for government to use and build to plant yam, then you should have something to compensate and show that, oh, government has used my land to plant yam. So we are not talking of going to do haphazard solutions. So when we say security, Joy, please, it is not limited to sending police or army. There are different levels of security that the different levels of government and even individuals can actually activate to ensure that farmers and food production goes at a very, very safe and steady pace.
Okay, so we're really running out of time, so I would say let's move away from the government intervention and look within. I know there are innovative ways that everyone can, do what they can within their space. The Renewed Hope Agricultural Initiatives has also tried to open our eyes to how you can, I think it was tagged every home of a garden. Do you also believe in that as well? And
yeah,
I would like you to give tips, if you can, as to how
Nigerians thank you, Joy, for drifting us back, because in Nigeria most times we get to all call on the government. Yes, as individuals we have role, and yes, I also applaud the initiative of the First Lady, the Renewed Hope initiative, where she's calling on every home to have a garden. And yes, it would play a very vital role. At Growth for Sustainable Agriculture Initiative, we also have a project we call the Backyard Farming Project, where we encourage everybody at their homes to have some level of backyard farming, some level of farming. If you're able to throughout the year produce the vegetable in your farm, you will reduce the pressure in the market, right? And then the market people can now actually sell to restaurants or probably sell to bulk buyers. You don't need to go and be struggling with people that are selling restaurant food to go and buy pumpkin, to go and buy water leaf, to go and buy pepper, to go and buy tomatoes, to go and buy even potatoes or even yam. These are things that you can produce in your farm. So there's a whole lot you can, even if you've cemented your whole farm, your whole land, you can always, communities can come together under a shade and produce crops. The community can come together. All government secondary schools have ample spaces. They can utilize that space and do a communal farming, where if the kind of space available in community secondary schools and primary schools are utilized, not just by because most times you now find the teachers now using the students as labor, and then you now find that there is cheating on, or there is an imbalance because the students are now tired and cannot study. So if you have the community coming together and maximizing those lands and producing potatoes and share it across the farm, producing yam and share it across the farm, or you are a private resident with a full, you can do bag farming. So there are sack farmings where you can plant in sacks and
just by your farm, by your house. You know how Abuja is. Abuja often does not have space. Yes, people really do not have that much space to say I can
by your fence, you can have sack farms being sacks being displayed with sand inside, and then you now plant your yam, you now plant your potatoes. So if we have individuals, if let's say we have 270 million Nigerians and 200 million of them are producing the basic food they have, they need
for themselves.
You as a person, you're breeding fish in your farm, in your house, and at least, I don't know if you can remember the last time you had to go and struggle with the woman in the village to feed you.
I've not bought fish for a very long time.
You understand? So you have reduced the pressure by 0.00001. Imagine that we had 200 million Nigerians producing their fish ponds, having their goats run, having these things can be done. And then there are innovative ways. There are hydroponic farms where you can, in fact, aesthetic ways where you can actually farm and people come in and it is very beautiful, right? If you have the funds to invest in that. If you don't have the funds to invest in that, you can also section a part of your compound, right, or a land. In Nigeria, we should not have any land that is bearing grass. If you're here, you don't have the land opposite you is not yours. Look for the owner. Talk to him and say, "Oga, so that this your land will not harbor snakes and harbor wild animals. Let me use it to farm." and it will be easy for you to take care of, because you can draw water from your compound to the farm opposite there, and you can actually wake up every morning and you're looking at it and you're securing it. We should not be looking at estates with lands by the side that are farmlands. For every land that is not yet developed, it should be producing a crop. So yes, I totally align with the Renewed Hope Initiative project for every home, that they should have a garden. I totally align, and I think it should go beyond just small home gardens to even maximizing. There should be a standing order that there should be no bush anywhere. Any land close to you, please plant. Discuss with the owner, plant on it, and then whatever arrangements you have, every land should be yielding.
So we have gotten to that point.
Oh yes, we have really gotten to that point where we should all be producing some quantity of food to contribute to the food production system.
Okay, so my final question would be the reception of young people. We have the number in Nigeria. Would you say that we have made we can do better in getting farming attractive? These are one sector, the constituents that we have not really looked at in it. When you look at the picture of an average farmer in Nigeria, it's with dirty clothes and it's looking like he's suffering. Are there ways we can attract this pool of young people in that constituent, that category, into the farm?
Yes. So yes, in Nigeria we've been doing agriculture in the sense that it's the culture of what we brought in, and we've been doing it just like you've explained. But there are better ways of doing things, which we now call agribusiness. So we are not doing agriculture, we now do agribusiness, and that is what is more attractive to young people, because agribusiness is more profitable, agribusiness is more respectable, agribusiness is more dignified. Yes, that's the word I was looking for, right? So there are many ways. There are young people that have been attracted to agriculture because you can now sit at your home, you can use drones, you can use hydroponics where you don't need to be dirty. There are different ways, so you can actually research about it. There are pens, there are battery cages where you can keep your birds, and you do not need to walk into the dirt of chicken to be able to keep birds. So there are many ways that young people can come in. It's just for us to keep on promoting and showing the agribusiness, the dignified agribusiness component. And some people say it's because of laziness, young people nowadays. No, the world has moved on, the world has changed. We do not have to suffer, we do not have to go through strenuous processes. Technology has come into place, digital methods have come into place, and in Nigeria we need to identify that there are farms nowadays that you can just sit in your home. You do not need to use a hose to go and water. All you need to do is to press a button, set a timer, just like you can set in your oven, in your thermostat or whatever, and within 10 minutes it has watered your farm and it has gone off, and you have conserved water and you've not broken a sweat. So we
not to mention the right quantity,
right? So we have fertigation where you do not need to go around putting fertilizer at every stem. You can use fertilizer through your irrigation system. We have a drone farm monitoring system where you can run a drone. You sit down here, your 2 hectare farm, your drone moves around and studies, and you're able to see this side the coloration is low, this side the coloration is high, we need to do this, we need to do this, there's pest attack here, there's pest attack here, and there's a whole lot that can be done. So yes, young people can be attracted to the innovative ways of doing farming. We need government to begin to promote that. We need CSOs to begin to promote that. We need those in agriculture to begin to promote that, because we are no more doing agriculture. We need to shift from agriculture and start doing agribusiness.
Agribusiness, that's a good one, and I'm happy you have mentioned really innovative ways that young people can join in without getting their bodies dirty, and they can maintain their steez and demure. Maintain their steez and demure. Daniel Black, thank you so much for being part of the program. It's always such a pleasure.
Always having me, Joy.
It's always such a pleasure. But this is where we end today's edition of Joy Asanye Live. I hope you have learned something. You too can contribute to ensure that this food insecurity we keep talking about comes to an end. Have a wonderful evening.